Unacceptable. That's just one of the words even city police have used recently as homicide cases have mounted in Sacramento, now sitting at 50 for the year. The latest happened just before Friday night, turned into Saturday morning in the parking lot of Grant Union High School. The Pacers were playing the Mustangs of Monterey Trail. Investigators say a man in his mid-20s was shot as a group of about 20 people started to fight. Barry Axius with the Youth Empowerment and Anti-Violence Group Voice of the Youth with me now live to discuss just what is happening in Sacramento. Barry, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay. A lot of people, though, in this city not. Bigger cities, of course, have bigger problems. 8.9 million people in Chicago, for example, 18 times bigger than us. 448 homicides there as of September of this year. 50 here for the year as of Friday. Each life, no matter where it's lost, is precious. Why do you think this seems to be happening so often in Sacramento?
Just want to, first of all, but before I start to, give my prayers and my blessings to those who lost their life just recently in the last 48 hours, as well as those individuals who've lost their life this year and even last year. I just think that what we have done, unfortunately, has overlooked some of the pre-existing conditions that have created gun violence. When you talk about the social economic issues, a lot of these communities, now it's transferred and it's spread throughout our communities. So we no longer look at disenfranchised communities as the centered space where gun violence happens. Unfortunately, gun violence has spread throughout our communities. When you talk about the number of homicides, we have 50. A majority of those homicides are due to gun violence. When you talk about the statistic in 2021, we were at 57 homicides. And when you talk about 2020, we were around 40. So if you don't think that there's a gun violence crisis here in Sacramento, you have not been paying attention to the trend. And I think that it has to be a joint effort for us to control what's happening in our communities.
We do want to point out that some of those lower numbers from 2020, a lot of people were in quarantine because of the coronavirus. The height of the pandemic at that time was keeping a lot of people inside. I know you were there with the mayor after the mass shooting on K Street back in April. A lot of promises were made to the public at that time about stemming the tide of violence. And despite best efforts, it doesn't feel to many like that's really happening. What are you hearing from our young people? What's happening out there that this violence is consistently what people are turning to perhaps solve their problems?
Well, we got to understand that, America by itself is a violent culture. I mean, it's a violent society. But when you have things that perpetuate or glorify the gun culture, you talk about videos on YouTube, you talk about music videos, you talk about communities, as well as the unfortunate part that I don't think that really gets highlighted as much is the illegal gun market, the black market of guns that are being sold. And now that we have young people having access to these type of guns, these military style weapons at the age of 12, where you can really literally have a young person buying a gun and making up their own gun by purchasing on the web. So I think that the efforts not only need to be on the prevention side, but also looking deeper into the roots of it, as well as the dark black market of gun violence, or should I say gun selling, that I think perpetuates a lot of what's happening right now. If a young person can get a gun before he gets opportunity, that's a big issue. And I don't think that we're really solidifying what and how are these guns getting into our communities, because there should be no reason why military style weapons are in our community. I think that a lot of the issues that we're having right now is there a high access of guns in the streets. I am a Second Amendment right a believer, but I don't believe that there should be illegal guns in the hands of criminals or young people.
And we know that ghost guns, illegal guns, have been a priority in terms of addressing them from Sacramento Police and then also the Attorney General's office. Before we let you go, the homicide from last Friday night in the parking lot of Grant High, we know the victim was not a teen, not a high schooler, a man in his mid-20s, according to police. But school facilities are supposed to be a safe place for young people. We spoke with a young woman earlier this morning talking about that. So even if everyone involved in the fight that turned fatal had nothing to do with Grant, this situation still affects those kids deeply.
No, I think it affects everyone, but you also have to look at the shooting that happened in the Fab 40s. Right, a 70-year-old elderly man, just going to a racket club and getting murdered. I just think that we no longer can just evaluate gun violence in just a certain community. Everyone must get involved. That means that police need to do their job. CBOs like myself and other advocates need to do our job. You have public officials need to do their job. And when I say that, that means everybody plays a lane. I feel like police should be more focused on getting illegal guns off the streets and making sure that criminals don't have guns. We, as our CBOs and organizations like myself, we need more funding to create alternatives and prevention, as well as we have to challenge our legislation to make sure that these criminals are not getting these kind of guns. And we have to be a little bit harder and stricter on our gun laws and policies. That's not saying taking away legal guns from those who have the right to bear arms, but we cannot continue to be a community where we're being blinded by believing that this is not going to be knocking on our door. And as you've seen from these last few days, no one is exempt from gun violence. It will knock on each other's door.
Barry, unfortunately, this is a huge topic, and we're going to have to put a pin in it.
You guys got to give me more time to talk about this. You got to be a little. We got to break it down. Let's get into the root. Let's really figure it out.
I keep my word. We will have you back, and we will talk more about this into the future. Hopefully, we're not talking about another homicide in Sacramento at that time as well as we talk about solutions. Thank you so much for your insight this morning.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Now let's